Great.
Who's on F and who's on neg, and who's first and who's second again?
Aaron is neg speaking first.
All right, great, thanks.
All right, time starts now. I negate. Contention 1 is energy. Della Rosa 21 reports that electricity generation from renewable energy sources is expected to rise over the next 2 years. 2022 emissions will be 3.9% lower than 2019 levels. Critically, Zale 21 explains we're closer to crossing climate tipping points than previously thought. Unfortunately, HSR construction reverses this trend. While Tool 21 continues that high-speed rail construction releases a huge amount of greenhouse gases. Building California's line alone would release 9.7 million metric tons of greenhouse gases. It would take 71 years to repay the cost, but since rails need to be replaced every 30 years, these savings will never make up for it. Taylor Lantine quantifies emissions kill 150 million people for every degree of warming. Contention 2 is sand. The world is running out of sand. Newcom 22 reports the world is in a sand shortage. We need to change the way we build infrastructure. Our sand resources are not infinite. Sand is used in cement. Sir 21 finds a bag of cement will require 2 cubic feet of sand. That's why Sam 21 explains sand is the primary substance used in the construction of high-speed trains. Joe 21 confirms for every $14 million of investment in high-speed railway, 20,000 tons of cement are consumed. Empirics prove. Corin 22 finds that because of California's HSR, LA's sand quarries are now vacant. Projects are having to tap increasingly from distant sources. The impact is twofold. First is economy. Parker 22 warns the uses of sand are so critical for a modern economy. Sand shortage is going to ripple through our economy. Dumiak continues, sand shortage slows the growth in developing regions. If sand were to run short, it would severely impact industry. The UN 20 quantifies 251 million could be living in extreme poverty. Second is mining. Bazier 17 explains sand extraction has caused millions in damage to infrastructure. Sand miners, because of sand miners have dug up so much ground that they have exposed the foundations of hillside buildings, putting them at risk of collapse. He continues, sand miners pull out so much that river banks collapse, a waterway to 400 million. Contention 3 is land devastation. Subpoint A is agriculture. Maxwell 19 explains the U.S., the world's top food exporter, shipped over 139.5 billion in agricultural products abroad in 2018. However, HSR threatens this in 2 ways. First, through fragmentation. CSCA 11 explains high-speed rails right-of-way will split farms in 2 and make parts of fields inaccessible, costing farmers profitability. Mendiola 22 furthers indirect impacts could be greater. Pesticides could be applied on farmland near the tracks and additional regulations would be imposed. Second, through water pollution. Shihan 22 explains high-speed trains will encounter an individual irrigation system on virtually every significant agricultural parcel. This is devastating as Shu 20 finds construction enterprises do not carry out unified treatment of waste soil, using it to fill ponds and mountain gullies, thus causing water pollution. This is all compounded with farmers leaving their devalued land. She 22 clarifies HSR projects led to a 20.6% increase in cropland abandonment. The impact is a food disaster. Fraser 18 explains high-speed rail will take 12 acres of prime farmland out of production per kilometer of track. Losing farmland is devastating. Roberts 21 quantifies 1 U.S. farm feeds 166 people annually in the U.S. and abroad. We can't afford to lose farms now, as the World Bank warns high-speed prices have triggered a global crisis that will drive millions into extreme poverty and magnifying hunger. Subpoint B is eminent domain. High-speed rail projects harm minority communities. Roberts 21 explains high-speed rail will exacerbate geographic, racial, and income disparities. This happens through land grabs. Abosh 13 warrants eminent domain describes the power of the state to take private property without the owner's consent. The Supreme Court not only inferred a federal power, it also influenced state applications. Texas serves as an empiric. Roberts 22 finds the Texas Central High-Speed Rail Project as eminent domain authority. Unfortunately, land grabs are devastating. Fong 19 analyzes that construction is taking land away without payment. Indeed, minorities suffer the cost of eminent domain usage. So Min 15 finds taking property to private interests victimizes poor racial minorities. Since the 1940s, taking steps forcibly displaced several million in the U.S., most of them poor and racial minorities. Aggressive use of eminent domain has also damaged the social fabric of poor communities because the displacement of residents, businesses, and churches undermines social ties. Thank you and vote neg.
Cool. All I need to see is the sand shortage hurts 251 million, pushes into poverty, and farmers leave their land 20% more with high-speed rail. I'll put my email in the chat.
The first card is just like reversing recovery from COVID. It's just like an economic impact.
Okay, just like all the link stuff on sand then, I guess.
Oh, wait, you want the link stuff, not the impact?
I mean, if the impact isn't specific to sand, then yeah.
Okay, sure. Can you put your email in the chat so I can start searching?
It should be there.
Okay. It's awesome. Do only 2 judges want to be on the chain or?
I'll probably just ask for any cards that are like relevant at the end of the round.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, I sent the email.
Cool, I'll let you know when I get it and then I'll start case. Okay, I just got it. Anyone not ready? Time starts with my first word. I affirm contention 1 is the environment. Energy use for transportation is trending up. USIEA 22 writes that in 2021, the transportation sector experienced the largest annual increase in energy consumption, about 10.2%. Unfortunately, most current transportation in the US is fueled by oil and gas. USIEA continues that petroleum products accounted for 90% of the US transportation sector energy use. HSR solves this. Project Drawdown explains that HSR compared with driving, flying, or riding conventional rail reduces carbon emissions 90%. Nano 18 explains reducing the number of cars on roads and highways translates into big energy savings and a reduced demand for rail. High-speed rail is more than 4 times as energy efficient as driving in cars and nearly 9 times more efficient than flying. Indeed, the US HSR corroborates that HSR is electrically powered and can run on 100% clean, safe, renewable energy. America consumes 20 million barrels of oil every day, most of it for transportation. So switching to oil-free high-speed rail is a huge climate and energy security solution all in one. The impact is increasing emissions. Transportation is the larger contributor to US emissions. EPA 22 writes that transportation sector generates the largest share of greenhouse gas emissions coming from burning fossil fuels for our cars, trucks, ships, and planes. HSR is enough to solve the crisis. Candosa 21 writes that reducing global emissions will prevent about 4.5 million people from premature deaths and 1.4 million hospitalizations in emergency room visits in the US. Contention 2 is the housing crisis. Housing is unaffordable in the status quo for urban areas. As Schaefer 22 writes, 2/3 of urban adults with lower household income say affordable housing in their area is a major problem. Fortunately, high-speed rail presents a solution. As Nickelberg 19 explains, HSR increases the convenience of living in outlying suburbs of crowded and expensive cities, making housing cheaper. HSR has the potential of adding significant residential land to America's fast-growing cities with expensive housing. That's crucial. As Kamenki 18 explains, by making it easier for workers to move out of the city, high-speed rail lines shift the demand for property from their higher-cost cities to more rural areas. That's empirically worked in places like Japan. As Nickelberg further says, Shinkansen high-speed rail line lower commuting costs to ex-urban areas with more affordable housing. This increased GDP per capita, meaning that the average price of housing in metropolitan areas ended up lower than would have been absent HSR. The impact is an increase in affordable housing. NLIHG 22 explains there is a shortage of 7 million affordable homes for our nation's 10.8 million extremely low-income families. 70% of these families pay more than half of their income on rent. The shortage of affordable housing costs the American economy about $2 trillion a year in lower wages. Importantly, housing is the key to reducing intergenerational poverty. Briggs terminalizes that access to safe, affordable housing is a leading determinant of income and wealth. Owning a house is critical to building wealth and stability over time. Across the U.S., nearly 14 million people live in extremely poor neighborhoods with no access to basic amenities, such as quality jobs. Contention 3 is Uzbekistan. Currently, Uzbekistan is building a new railway in South Asia called the Trans-Afghan Railway. As of 22 writes, the project will include the development of a 573-kilometer railroad line. The new transport corridor will further develop a network between Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, and Southeast Asia, which lessens the time and cost of transportation by 30%. That's high speed. Jamal 21 finds the Trans-Afghan Railway will include both passenger and cargo high-speed trains. It's also topical because the $5 billion rail line is funded by U.S. loans to Uzbekistan. Hashimova 21 explains, while some regional projects languish on paper for decades, the Trans-Afghan Railway will be realized on schedule. The IDFC has been in negotiations with Uzbekistan since 2020 with a target of raising $1 billion in 5 years. Increased investment into high-speed rail will allow the U.S. to reach its funding goal, allowing for the implementation of the rail line. The impact is the Afghan crisis. The Trans-Afghan Railway is key to ending the conflict as it continues. The Trans-Afghan Railway sets out an exceptional opportunity for ensuring security in Afghanistan. The monetary benefits will entice players in the Afghan conflict and external powers to work for a change of the situation in the war-torn country. That's crucial. As with money-related advantages, many will comprehend that trading is more gainful than fighting. Such an affirmation will prove to be far more effective than any potential political plan or global course of action. Ending the crisis is crucial. As Brown 13 explains, 241,000 people have been killed in the Afghanistan and Pakistan war zone since 2001. Don't waste time. Build new infrastructure. Vote F.
Okay, I'm good for cross.
Cool.
Can I get first question?
Yep.
Sure. Time starts Now, so just to like clarify, right, your topicality is that the US is already like investing in Uzbekistan.
No, it's that they've been in negotiations to fund Uzbekistan and they need $5 billion to do so. It's funded by US
Wait, so
loans.
they don't have enough money to fund it right now.
No,
Okay, can I see that evidence after cross?
Yeah.
And, okay,
can I have a question?
yeah.
So you cite this evidence that says it takes 71 years to make up the difference in California for the
Yeah.
carbon emissions. Where does this come from? How do they get the number of like 71 years?
I'm honestly not too sure. I'm sure you can tell me.
Yeah, so the author actually realized his study was flawed, then came back 2 years later and said it would take decades less to meet carbon neutral and go beyond that and be a net positive on emissions overall.
Okay, sure. Can I have a question?
Yeah.
We'll probably contest that in a rebuttal, but yeah, that's fine. On your impact for Uzbekistan, how does like building a train stop conflict? Can you like re-explain that part of the?
Okay, so it's pretty simple. Like there hasn't been any real infrastructure put into the zone in the conflict zone because of the fact that people are scared that it'll get torn apart. But the asset evidence is really specific, and it says this specific railway entices players in the Afghan conflict and the powers outside of the conflict to work for a change in the situation.
Wait,
Many
what?
powers have already had. Sorry.
So like them putting a train in like a conflict zone makes both sides suddenly stop wanting to fight.
It's a little bit deeper than that. I think the warrant is that when there's money related advantages for freight and other like passengers, many will comprehend that that trading is like way better than fighting over needs in the zone. Which
Okay,
is
but
also
like
fighting is.
the rail has to be built before like they stop fighting, right?
I mean, as the negotiations have been going on, I'd argue that the fighting is already decreasing. So
Oh, okay. So your impact's already going away.
no, I think that it has to happen in order for the rail has to be built in order for every impact to be realized. But I think that it proves that people are slowing down fighting because of the fact that the rail line is being negotiated.
Okay.
Let's
Do
talk
you have
about
a question?
let's talk about sand. How much sand does it take
Mhm.
to build a highway?
I also don't know. Like
A lot more
probably a
than
response you'll read. Okay, why?
think about this logically, right? How much
Uh-huh.
concrete is in a highway?
Well, okay, but are like highways being built in the US or like across the world right now?
Are highways being built in the US right now? I think so. A lot more than high-speed rail.
Okay.
So, I mean, if we're doing the comparative, in a world where you don't build high-speed rail, you're going to need more infrastructure down the line, which is probably going to come in the form of highways, which means probably using more sand. But that's cross.
Yeah, sure, that's cross. I'll take 15 seconds of prep. Wait, that was like 10 seconds. Can I see the evidence now? Or did you already send it?
Which evidence was it?
I think it was that the US doesn't have enough to fund Uzbekistan, and also that like I also want to see the impact evidence, which is that like putting a train like stops conflict or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. That should be sent.
Okay, I'll tell you when I get it, and then I think I should be good to start.
Also, sorry, I was just looking at the sand evidence and I don't think you sent the link. You just sent the impact.
Wait, I thought you asked for like the link into the impact evidence, but uh, so what evidence you specifically want to see?
The link
Just
that has the number of like tons of cement it takes to build
oh,
high
okay,
speed.
yeah. I'll send that. Give me like 1 second, sorry.
Yeah, again, sorry to be a stickler about evidence, but I also called for the 20%, and that's not there either.
What was the 20% card?
On farmers,
Oh, right, sorry.
you're good.
Yeah, just give me 1 second. I'll send both. Okay, I sent both of them.
Perfect, thank you.
Just let me know when you get them and I'll start.
I just got them.
Okay. In that case, it'll just be a this out at the top and then straight down there. Just time starts. No, start for the discount on debt. Old Tool 29 explains the high-speed rail plan would cost at least $4 trillion. Bivens 20 continues, deficit rises, translating to inflation. Rising debt in a supply-constrained economy pushes interest rates higher. This reduces private sector investment. It crowds out investment, leads to higher foreign ownership of U.S. assets like bonds, which means it crowds out investment going to other countries. The World Bank 22 concludes 95 million additional people could be living in extreme poverty due to rising inflations. 3 implications. First, the government can't reduce climate change or invest in green tech if the economy is bad. That predicts their C1. Second, housing isn't going to go down and if inflation goes up. Instead, housing prices are increased. Third, the U.S. economy declining causes other countries to also decline, like Uzbekistan specifically, by like stopping investment. But we outweigh because we're affecting more countries with like the debt argument. Go to their C1. Their solvency is through like turning away from oil. You turn that argument. The U.S. is going independent, destroys any opportunity for Venezuela. Smith 21 elaborates. Smith 22 elaborates. Oil dependency has led Biden to consider relaxing sanctions against Venezuela to gain oil. Crucially, Fox 19 writes Venezuelan sanctions means the government can't afford to repair broken pipes and pumps, leaving 20% of Venezuelans without access to water. Lifting sanctions solves, however, taking away the need for oil takes away the incentive to lower sanctions. Hernandez 19 realizes 20 million have suffered shortage of water. Second, if the U.S. cuts oil imports, global demand drops. McFarland 22 expands if demand decreases, prices will also go down. Ishvani 08 concludes that sliding oil prices will send oil countries into a long recession and threaten political stability. That creates all their solvency because when a country goes into economic crisis, one, they can't put more funding into green tech, and two, they can't diversify away from oil itself. But then 2 pieces of defense. First, unique because like emissions have already decreased. The EPA 22 finds that U.S. emissions increased 11% compared to 2019. Second, Gordon 21 finds that we need to reduce emissions by 45% by 2031 to stop from reaching the point of irreversibility. However, like investing in Asia never pays back in time because like it takes decades to build. On housing, you turn it because in California specifically, affordability would actually decrease by making surrounding areas more desirable. Bloomberg 19 finds that the high-speed rail line would make the Central Valley actually less affordable than like other areas. For our evidence, because it's US specific, there are evidence about Japan. Second, HSR increases industrial gentrification. Lynn 20 finds that industries near HSR stations are displaced by newly moving in industries. Gentrification occurs when displaced industries are the lower skill, and the moving in industries are the higher skill types, endangered, unskilled, and immigrant workers. This outweighs their case if the actual poor and low quality workers are getting pushed up out of their only source of money, then they won't be able to do anything else, which forces them to go into poverty. But then you turn it again because HSR displaces these people too. Turning 19 explains that public transportation development changes the affordability of long-standing communities that residents have called home for generations. Because of the large demand to live next to a rail station, developers push up prices of housing around rail, and residents are priced out. In California, rent went up 3.5K, far too much for the average renter. And Lynn 20 confirms HSR encourages migration to served areas, which raises the price of land by 67%, causing mass displacement. Florida 18 terminalizes gentrification and exacerbates income inequality. Go to Uzbekistan. First, non-unique. Their evidence literally takes out their entire case. It concedes the U.S. has already raised money and committed to the deal. You don't have to affirm they're already raising money to like invest there. But then second, the 2 non-uniques more. First, the Asian Infrastructure Bank and Uzbekistan signed a $108 million deal for like the same high-speed rail plan. Like we aren't uniquely needed. But then 2, HSR doesn't even help those that need it the most in like these developing countries, because Malu Fashi 25 HSR prices out locals, for example, in Africa, because tickets cost 8 times the daily income of half the population. The same would be true for Uzbekistan, where 13% of the population also lives in poverty. Like no one would use these. But then you turn the argument because Subject 18 finds that in developing countries, corruption in public infrastructure is particularly nefarious due to unstable institutional government structures, resulting in 45% of construction costs going to bribery. Tansy furthers because project gets delayed and existing infrastructure deteriorates because corruption leads to cutbacks on operation and maintenance expenditure. Co-op other impacts and prefer us because we access not just the failure of HSR in Uzbekistan, but other infrastructure too. We're like cutting all by like introducing corruption to that country. We're destroying all their infrastructure, destroy the time frame in their case because it adds like more time needed to build, and that cuts their impact because it has to be fully built for these countries to actually realize, oh, we can like stop the conflict because there's no like economic opportunity.
Can I get the speech doc?
Yeah, my bad.
You're good.
Do you want the entire thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
it with cards preferable. If not, I'll just call for the specific evidence.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have the cards on hand, but I can just you can call.
Cool. I need the 45% bribery, and I need the first turn on Venezuela evidence, and then I'm good.
Okay. Sure.
For the speech shot, can you reply all?
Yeah. Wait, so it's just Venezuela, and what was the second evidence you wanted?
Anything specific to Uzbekistan? Like if there was anything specific in there.
It was just non-uniques, and I put like, okay, so you want to see that like the Asian bank deal?
Oh, the 108 million? No, I don't need that. Anything on the bribery stuff that was specific to Uzbekistan?
Yeah, no, there's nothing specific.
Okay, great.
Okay, the order of the email is just the speech doc, and then Venezuela, and then bribery.
Perfect. I'll start prep as soon as I get it. Okay, I just got it. I'm starting prep now. I just paused prep at a minute 12. I don't see the doc. Am I like missing something?
It's at the top of the email.
Let me refresh.
It's just like text.
The last thing I see is the depth DA. Oh, wait, is it just straight down from there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Sorry, my fault. I will resume prep as soon as it loads. My email is being extremely weird. I'm not prepping, I promise. Okay, cool. I'm good. Resuming now. Cool, that's all my prep. Everyone ready? It's their case, our case. I'll do the disad on my case. Cool. Start on energy. First, turn it. High-speed rail solves it better because high-speed rail accounts for 8% of the world's motorized passenger movements and 7% of freight transport, and it uses only 2% of the world's transport energy demand. HSR is 8 times more energy efficient than airplanes and 4 times more efficient than automobile use, which significantly reduces emissions. All the energy is 100% clean. They dropped the USAID evidence. That out of case, don't let them bring it up now. Also, they turn themselves on this. They read 2 turns on our case on Venezuela and demand decreasing and price decreasing, meaning no green tech can be created. That takes out their argument as well as mine. So if you want a non-unique both, you can, but I'm going to frontline them anyway. Let's talk about sand. This is, oh wait, sorry, one more thing on energy, I almost forgot. They read O'Toole here. That's really bad. Levy 21 explains that O'Toole says without references that it would cost $4 trillion to build a US-wide high-speed rail network, but 20,000 kilometers would be $500 billion at tunnel for European costs, or maybe $600 billion with 5% tunneling. His cost estimates are way off, and that's because he's incentivized to lie. He works for Cato. That's an oil conglomerate company. You're never buying this evidence. On sand, this is really silly for a couple of reasons. First, it's not comparative at all. They try to tell you that concrete is super popular. What they don't tell you is that there is way more concrete in highways and roads and like airports and all this other infrastructure that requires travel that's not high-speed rail. High-speed rail uses significantly less sand than every other type of infrastructure. The implication is really simple. If we don't build high-speed rail now, we're going to build more of this infrastructure in the future, meaning that there's going to be even more of a sand shortage, meaning you can turn the argument. On the sand miners impact that's happening in the status quo, read the evidence. It's not going to change because we decide to build one high-speed rail line. But let's talk about displacement. A couple problems. First, highway expansion and construction projects are happening all the time in the United States, and Dylan 21 writes the expansion of a singular highway can push out nearly 1,000 families from their homes. Regardless of whether HSR is built, the US will always need to expand transportation infrastructure to meet the needs of a growing population. But second, you can turn it again because rail trades off with other forms of displacing infrastructure. VOC from June writes that in Colorado, investment in rail yards and lines caused the Department of Transportation to cancel highway expansion projects because they can only focus on one large project at a time, thus reducing displacement from highway projects. That applies to their sand contention too. If we have to cancel highway projects to focus on high-speed rail, we're using less sand. That also turns this argument because highways are far more inefficient at using space than rail. Clark 20 writes that while California's high-speed rail project will only displace 62 homes across 3 counties, Dylan 21 explains that a single highway expansion project in a similar area displaced over 850 families. What they also don't tell you is that you can just tunnel the trains to avoid displacing anyone. They go underground. That's why they don't displace as many families. Look at California. They've already started moving their trains underground to prevent eminent domain or displacement. They use Texas Central as their empiric. That line was canceled. California wasn't. On agriculture, literally every response applies. This farmers leaving their land 20% of the time is horrible. It's from China. In California, not a single farmer has been forced to leave their land. It's really simple. Let's go to our case, or let's start on the debt side. 2 problems. 1, the government doesn't need to spend more to finance high-speed rail. Second, 2021 writes a new national infrastructure bank can be capitalized with existing debt of $5 trillion. We're not taking any money out. But second, there's no precedent to debt ever causing the impacts they talk about. The Peterson Foundation in March that federal debt has increased by over $6 trillion to finance COVID. There's never been this impact before. That's because modern monetary theory has continued to be proven over and over again. Remember O'Toole, he reads it here too. On environment, he reads 2 turns that turn his own energy. Those are the first 2 turns. And then on the non-uniques, he says emissions are decreasing and there's a 45% decrease in need. That doesn't matter. We have to solve the problem now. If we don't solve the problem now, all of our impacts manifest. On housing, he tries to turn it with California. That's predictive and not built. Japan has been. He also tries to say it gentrifies. But even if high-speed rail did cause gentrification, the burden is on them to prove why high-speed rail is particularly gentrifying. Not every neighborhood is equally susceptible to gentrification. And even if it was, you have no idea why this transit is worse than any other. They never make a comparative. Drop Uzbekistan on the non-unique. It's a pretty clean half ballot.
I'm good for cross.
Cool.
Okay, so wait, can you explain to me how my turn's non-unique mine case?
On energy, you literally say
Yeah.
that oil dependency in Venezuela decreases the need for oil and cuts off 20 million people. And then on your energy contention,
Wait, what?
claim-
Okay,
that's-
yeah, continue, sorry.
that's the evidence.
Yeah,
side.
that's my turn, that's my turn.
And you read the second term that says a decrease in demand means a decrease in prices, which sends oil companies into recession. Then on your case, you read that if electricity from renewables, if support for renewables decreases, it's going to send us into crisis. And this is the tipping point, high-speed rail uniquely. So that is
Wait,
like
what?
that's a direct perf con.
Oh, okay, so it's just the De La Rosa evidence, right?
I don't know what evidence it was. I'm going off the warrant. Like, if you're saying that
Huh?
high-speed rail is dirty energy, but then you're also saying that if we don't use dirty energy, that oil countries are going to go into crisis and recession, and that also oil dependency in Venezuela is going to like starve 20 million Venezuelans, you have to pick one.
Wait, no, that doesn't make sense. I'm saying the construction releases greenhouse gases.
Your argument isn't about construction, it's about
Yes, it
energy.
is.
It's about energy use. The contention is called
No, it's
energy
not.
use, and every
Right,
single-
yeah, but the link is construction. That's the only link I read.
Every single piece of evidence you read in this contention is about the energy use post-construction, not about the actual construction of the train.
That's not
If
true. The
energy
only
use
link I
on the
read is
train dirty,
construction.
you have to pick whether you think energy use is good when it's dirty or whether it's clean. I'm telling you it's going to be clean, and you turn that. And then by result, turn your own case.
All right, I disagree. You can have a question.
Okay, let's talk about, what should we talk about? Let's talk about displacement, right?
Right.
In a world where you don't build high-speed rail, what takes its place? Like, we're going to need to build some infrastructure, right? Like infrastructure is
I mean, maybe at some point, but like we're not doing that to every neighborhood. Well, we're not doing that like on mass scales right now. That's what I'd say.
okay. So would you rather a significant investment go into highways, which would definitely displace more?
I mean, when is that gonna happen? Or like,
I don't think I need to prove when it happens. I just need to prove if it happens. You can do time frame weighing and I can do probability weighing. And I'm pretty sure I can win that.
Okay, we'll see. Wait, sorry, what was your question?
It was, are we not going to build other infrastructure if we don't build high-speed rail now?
Well, I'd say like not on that big of a scale. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't
Why?
know what you want me to say.
But why?
Because there's no like plan. There's no like
population is
need there.
growing,
Right?
right? We're not just gonna never ever build any
Okay.
infrastructure ever again.
Yeah, sure, but like high-speed rails now, that's
High-speed
guess it
rail
just comes
is
down to
uniquely like I said in rebuttal, high-speed rail means that we have to focus on high-speed rail, taking away the need for other projects like highways, which use more sand and displace more.
but there's
and
like no focus on those things right now. That's
okay.
yeah, that's cross. I'll take running prep. Wait, that was like 1 minute. What were your responses on debt? The DA.
It was two. Forshek writes that a new national infrastructure bank can be capitalized with existing federal debt of 5 trillion, and there's no precedent to debt ever causing the impacts they talk about because COVID happened and we took 6 trillion out and nothing happened.
Okay. Okay, I think that's like all my prep. It's just gonna go our case, your case. Let me just hold through. Okay. Time starts now. On our realize that they've ignored the entire that the time it takes to build HSR. It takes decades of time, and that's going to lose them the round. The first thing they say in C1 is that like it's more efficient, sure, but first they have no impact. Second, they like don't do any weighing, like there's no offense garners. But first, I'd say it still has to be built, which takes decades. And second, we say construction offsets benefits. Like even if it's 2 years, it still like takes a long time to offset. But then because it takes decades to build itself, and that's like a lot of carbon emissions over time. But then on C2 and like C3, they also don't like garnish any offense because they're just reading that like highways trade off curve, but there's like no specificality on like why highways are that much worse than like HSR. I'd say like if it's like they even garnish offense at all, it's like pretty even. Like you trade off, sure, they both have bad impacts. But even so, I'd say like right now, if we implement HSR, it's always going to be worse because we give the economy less time to like recover, which means there's less time for like sand supply to like steadily even out, or like less time for these people to like be put in a steady position where they won't be displaced by eminent domain. So like you're always preferring our case on time frame. But at that point, let's go to their case. They on their C1, they say we turn ourselves. No, we don't. My link is solely on construction bad, not trains bad. We never make any analysis that oil keeps getting used or that like trains are dirty. The turns are really clean. They mishandled them. First, the US going independent destroys any opportunity for Venezuela. Smith 22 elaborates oil dependency has led Biden to consider relaxing sanctions against Venezuela to gain oil. Crucially, Fox 19 writes Venezuelan sanctions means the government can't afford to repair broken pipes and pumps, leaving 20% of Venezuelans without access to water. Lifting sanctions solves, however, taking away the need for oil lowers the incentive to lower sanctions, and critically 20 million have suffered shortages of water. The second turn comes from McFarland, which tells you if the U.S. demand for oil decreases, then the prices will also go down, which Ishfani 08 quantifies that sliding oil prices will send oil countries into a long recession and threaten political stability. They can see the Wayne that preempts all of their solvency because when a country goes into economic crisis, they can't put for more funding into green tech, and they also obviously can't lower their housing prices because they're in an economic crisis. This goes cold conceded. It's pretty much like a game over for them already. But then specifically on C1, they have dropped like both like their responses to the two pieces of defense is really bad. They say we need to solve climate change now, but like first of all, there's no warrant. Second of all, we already tell you that it's steadily going down. Like off isn't needed. But second, we need to okay, then let's go to housing, right? They make one response on gentrification, which is that we don't know how like gentrified each neighborhood is or like how it'll affect them. But that doesn't matter because all of our empirics prove that for each one of these like rail like areas, it's become a lot more gentrified. The warrant is pretty simple, right? No one cares that you live next to a highway. They're pretty accessible, and that's why like they're just saying that it doesn't matter because like they're not actually going to become gentrified. But the difference for rail is that a lot of people want to live next to these like rail stations, right? So there's going to be a lot of migration, which is what our evidence indicates too. You extend both of the turns, which tells you that when these like industries are, when these like stations are built, it pushes out people who are like residents of like lower income for like more people who come in, raise the price of land and like cause displacement. Thank you and vote neg.
Cool, everyone ready? It's going to be their case-ish, and then our case, and then Wayne. They drop every single argument on their case, make them go for the turns. There's no going back. They say that there's no offense garnered off of our first turn on their case. That's not true. It's a cross-up of climate, so obviously it has offense. Everything else is cold conceded. They have to go for these two oil turns where they turn themselves. They make the claim that their argument on C1 is just about construction. Look at the first card. It says that electricity from renewables will decrease, meaning that the energy that these high-speed rail trains are using are dirty. That means the argument is not just about construction, it's about the use of those trains holistically over time, which is why he reads the evidence that it'll take 71 years to make up that cost. He tries to make the claim the energy is dirty. Then he says we need the energy to be dirty after reading an impact that says the energy shouldn't be dirty. It's a very big perf con. Round is over there. But even if you don't believe that he turned himself and that you can extend these turns, there are two reasons they both fail. First is that any oil dependency on Venezuela any decrease in oil in high-speed rail doesn't mean we can't still purchase oil from Venezuela. Everyone's not just going to stop using cars. But second, he tries to tell you that a decrease in demand decreases prices and sends oil into recession, which means no one's developing green tech. That makes no sense. None of these oil countries are developing green tech. Obviously, that goes against their entire motive to make money, which is to sell oil. The only countries that are actually developing green tech are countries like the US who aren't spinning into recession if they're oil dependent. They just try to explain that our responses on the defense are really bad. They're not. All they say is emissions are going down right now. Okay, they need to be going down more in order to solve the 4.5 million premature deaths that are going to happen in the status quo. Our evidence post states. Then on this housing gentrification turn, They try to extend it through after we respond to the warrant on their case about displacement, which goes dropped. This turn is really crucial. We tell you that Clark 20 writes that while California's high-speed rail project will only displace 62 homes across 3 counties, Dylan 21 explains that a single highway expansion project in a similar area displaced over 850 families. That's really crucial. None of their arguments are ever comparative. Look at the counterfactual. In a world where you don't build high-speed rail, you're going to have more highways. He concedes the defense, conceding the warrant for the turn. At that point, if highways are displacing many more people, the weighing is really easy. First is probability. We'd argue that if you don't affirm, the probability that you build more highways is 100%. You're not going to stop building infrastructure just because there are no trains. But second is magnitude. If you don't build the trains, you're hurting way more people. Any time frame weighing definitely doesn't matter. It's util impact calc, mag times probability. Time frame definitely fails on the meta weighing analysis. Overall, you're always preferring the environment weighing or the environment for 2 reasons. First is scope because it's a global impact, but second, their impacts about Venezuela and a recession are not well warranted at all. We'd argue that 4.5 million deaths definitely outweighs any loss of water. It's a clean F.
Wait, what was your link into 4.5 million?
That's my impact off climate.
Huh? Oh, okay.
Are we doing grand?
Do you want to skip? Is everyone okay with skipping and like each person gets like a minute of prep? Okay, sounds good. Wait. Well, which piece of evidence did I read that said really quickly? Like, which piece of evidence did I read that said renewables?
I think it's
renewables were,
the
like, going down?
Del Rosa or something, but it says
Okay.
that very first card you read.
Yeah. Do you want to see that evidence?
Sure.
Okay. I sent it. I'll take my 1 minute of GCX prep. Okay. I'm gonna go just their case. Time. All right, hold on, let me pull up a timer. Yeah. It's just gonna go, yeah, their case, the 2 turns at the top. Time starts now. Let's start on like the 2 oil turns, right? They keep saying we turn ourselves. No, we don't. Our evidence is saying that electricity from renewables went up. If anything, that supercharges our link into the turns. At that point, they make 2 new responses. In summary, it comes far too late in the round, and also they're pretty bad. They say no oil countries develop green tech. Yeah, that's not an argument. Argument is that the recession also affects like big countries like the US, which means that green tech development goes down. At that point, the turns are like really clean. for you extend both of them. The U.S. going independent destroys any opportunity for Venezuela because right now, the need for oil has led Biden to consider relaxing sanctions against Venezuela. Right. The only reason we're like. We don't actually need Venezuela for that much oil, which is why, like, when they say that we're not going to like completely cut off, we're not completely cutting off. Because like we don't take that much from them anyways. It's specifically because of like Russia's invasion. So that means that like their responses doesn't matter, but that's what, and crucially, these sanctions have means the government can't afford to repair broken pipes and pumps, leaving 20% of Venezuelans without access to water. And lifting sanctions solves. However, when you take away this need for oil by transitioning to electric trains, you'd also take away the incentive to lower these sanctions, which is why 20 million have suffered shortages of water. They lose the time frame because their climate turn or any offense on climate only takes place when it's built, but every day it takes to build HSR, which is decades, these people go without water and they probably also die. They don't win severity, but then they also drop the defense from rebuttal. Like, don't let them not respond to this, which is the evidence that says that by the time it takes for HSR to be fully built, like we were already on a point of irreversibility. You'd better solve this than like take time to like build HSR. They also don't in severity because like these people also probably die. But then second, if the U.S. cuts oil imports, the global demand also drops, which means Ishfani 08 finds that sliding oil prices will send these countries into recession. That creates all their sovereignty because when a country goes through an economic crisis, they can't put more funding into green tech and they can't diversify away. And then also on housing, first of all, they don't even extend. Don't let them win here, but realize that they don't give you a warrant for why highways gentrify more. We tell you that there's no demand for living next to a highway. You can access it from any point, but living next to a station is specifically attractive. That causes displacement.
Cool. Everyone good? It's just our case. The round is over when you open the email and read the first line of the card Aaron just sent. It says electricity generation capacity from renewable energy sources is expected to continue to rise over the next 2 years. That is a direct contradiction of the structural uniqueness claim out of case on both of the turns. That concedes that every single impact Aaron just read off of his turns are inevitable if they're expected to continue to rise, and electricity generation and renewables are expected to continue to increase. Any like cutoff of Venezuelan water or any green tech cutoff is completely inevitable. Even if it's not a counter turn, it concedes the uniqueness. The round's over right there. He has no impact because he dropped case and decided to go for these turns. It's done. Even if you don't buy that, we're winning the round because you're stuck in this debate about whether or not it's more important to save 20 million people from water shortages or save 4.5 million from debt. Our argument is way clearer. We tell you that energy use is up right now, 10.2% of transportation increased, but 90% of that is oil and gas based, which is cut down another 90% by HSR because it's 100% renewable. That's way better than cars and trains and other trains and planes, decreasing emissions enough to save 4.5 million deaths and 1.4 million from hospitalization. Here's the comparative. Their impact is inevitable. We win the time frame. Our impact is definitely more probable because empirics prove it. Look to Spain, Japan, France. We've read these all round. We win probability. He tries to say he wins severity. That makes no sense. These people are dying. We definitely win severity and we win scope. It's a global impact, not just in Venezuela. And they never give any warrant for why oil countries going into recession spurs every country that's ever produced green tech into recession. There is no warranting here. At the end of the day, the only place you can vote is at. Even if they try to go for this gentrification turn, they drop the empiric that says 62 are displaced in high-speed rail, while 850 are displaced with highways. It's a very clean AF ballot. Good round.
Good round, y'all.
Good round.
I would like to see a couple of cards. I'd like to see, I think it's like Ishpani 8 or something along those lines.
Yeah. Okay.
The argument about the recession like turning their case. I just want to sort of like read through the warrants. And
Okay.
then also the card for how long it'll take to build high-speed rail.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll get this in. Wait, do you mind sending your email or is it in your? paradigm?
Yes, it should be in my paradigm, but I can put it in the chat if that would be faster.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, totally. Oh, actually, also, can I have the card that says that Biden is currently considering lifting sanctions from Venezuela? And then also the card that says renewables are expected to rise, just to compare the dates on them specifically.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much.
This might take a second though, so sorry.
I also need the evidence of how long it will take, so including that.
Wait, what evidence do you need today?
The one of how long it would take. I think that's from the cons.
Okay, cool.
But if the pro side provided a